Check, check, check. Check, 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 check. Okay, team, let's get started. This is Naveen Nanjundappa from 12 Principles Consulting, and today we are going to go ahead and learn about the Scrum Guide, a definitive guide to Scrum, the rules of the game. So here, in 2020 November, there was a latest version that was released for a Scrum Guide. So let's refer to the latest guide on a Scrum Guide to know more. You'll notice in the very first page, the authors of the Scrum Guide have put in some description saying what is the purpose of a Scrum Guide. Typically, a Scrum Guide is used for various different purposes. I would just leave it to you to read through this first page. Scrum Guide covers a lot of topics, especially related to the Scrum. So you'll have a definition of Scrum, the Scrum theory, what does it typically consist, what is the base route, the rules, the Scrum values, the Scrum team, what are the responsibilities in a Scrum team, the Scrum events, the artifacts, and the end closure. So basically the Scrum Guide consists of the responsibilities, events, and artifacts along with the Scrum values. So let's look at each one of them. Now, the Scrum definition. In the Scrum definition, the authors clearly mention that the Scrum is a light-weighted framework that helps people, teams, organization generate value for a complex problems. Their complex problems is being solved using adaptive solutions. So Scrum helps you to inspect and adapt throughout its cycle. Now, in a nutshell, Scrum requires, so look at this, Scrum Master. So in Scrum, we have a Scrum Master who is going to enable, foster the environment. What kind of environment? There are product owner responsibility. So the product owner is going to work towards ordering the product backlog that reflects what needs to be done. So we have a complex problem or a situation that we need to solve, and the product owner works towards ordering the product backlog items. Now, then we have a Scrum team, which is a product owner, developers, and the Scrum Masters combination, who selectively work towards getting the work done as an incremental value during the sprint. And then the whole Scrum team and the stakeholders inspects and adapts for the next sprint. So that's a key essential part, inspects and adapts. So in Scrum, we have the inspect and adaptation cycles going through. So in Scrum is simple, try it as is and determine its philosophy, theory, and structure helps to achieve the goal and create value. So let's look at it. The Scrum framework is purposefully incomplete. What does it mean? You don't, in Scrum, you don't get answers to everything. It is purposefully incomplete. Why is it incomplete? So that you can go ahead and add on any of your tools and techniques and strategies that makes more sense to you. So the Scrum framework only gives you basic necessary for the teams to inspect and adapt, only defining the parts as required. So whatever is required is being defined in Scrum Guide. So instead of saying everything and making it as a detailed process, Scrum is a lightweighted framework which gives you only the rules of the game, and the tools and techniques and strategies needs to be added and made more sensible. So you can notice that various processes, techniques, and methods can be employed within a framework. Scrum wraps around existing practices or renders them unnecessary. Scrum makes it visible to relative efficacy of the current management environment and the work techniques so that improvements can be made. So if you are using Scrum, remember you will be seeing a lot of ineffectiveness in your system, and as an inspect and adapt continuous improvement, you go ahead and change, improve your systems. So what is the Scrum theory all about? The Scrum is basically founded on empirical thinking and lean thinking. So what do you mean by empiricism and lean thinking? In empiricism, it shows that we get the knowledge from the experience and we make the decision based on what is available now or what is observed. So you can notice that in empiricism, in empirical thinking, you take a decision based on what you know now. So you go with an assumption that we know whatever is required for us to take a decision, and as we incur new learning, new things, we are going to go ahead and change our plan. So empiricism is about that, constant improvement in the plan and decision making, while the lean thinking reduces the waste and focus on essentials. Now you can think over everything that is not necessary. You can go ahead and remove it and go ahead and focus on only what is necessary, essential. In fact, Scrum employs the iterative and incremental approach. Iterative is in its process, so the process of developing the work, and incremental is step by step development of the product or a functionality. So incremental gives you a small value increment, and iterative gives you a 100% done increment of the product to optimize the predictability and control risk. So you will notice this. Where can you use Scrum? You use Scrum whenever you want to reduce the risk. So when you want to go ahead and ensure that you want to reduce the risk, Scrum is best suited because it gives you a cycles of inspect and adapt where you can control your risk. Scrum engages groups of people who actively have all skills and expertise to do so. So this is a very interesting one. What do Scrum expect? Scrum expects that people have all the skills required to do the work. That means that the Scrum team has necessary skills to perform the work, and the team members go ahead and share, learn, or even acquire the knowledge as required and necessary. Scrum combines 4 formal events for inspection adaptation within a container event called as sprint. So there is a sprint, and within the sprint we have 4 events. All 4 events are essentially for inspection adaptation. So if you look at the 4 events that are formal events, the sprint planning, review, retrospective, and daily Scrum, you are going to go ahead and see that all are focused on inspection adaptation. In fact, if you remove the word inspection adaptation from the Scrum, then it becomes a pure micromanagement. Many people don't have this mindset for inspect and adapt, and they implement waterfall with Scrum terminologies. So just be careful about that. Meanwhile, if you are watching this video, you could always post your queries and comments, so we could always go ahead and look at what is the learning. Okay, so now these events work because they implement empiricism. Scrum, empirical Scrum pillars are if you notice, these events work because they implement the empirical Scrum pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So those are the 3 pillars of Scrum and empirical process. So here, what is transparency? Transparency is a process and work must be visible. Emergent process work should be visible for those who are performing the work.